Our reading this morning was written by the Reverend Theresa Inez Soto, they, them pronouns, who currently serves our congregation in Oakland, California. This piece appears in their book, Spilling the Light, published by our very own Unitarian Universalist Association's Skinner House Books. It's called There Are Lots of Ways to Stay Alive. ILYSM. There are lots of ways to stay alive. You can wear soft clothes and focus on brushing your teeth and hydrating. You can ask yourself what you need and not be mad when you don't have the answer, only a shrug. You can breathe in, and then, with care, you can also breathe out, taking the one thing, one single breath at a time. Taking the thing, one single breath at a time. You can give yourself a chance. Remember, not only your mistakes, but also the ways that you matter. From eyelash to shoelace, you matter. You matter when you are sad, when the world is heavy, like wet laundry dragging from your arms. You matter when you are angry and you use your teeth like welded prison bars to keep the words that might cause harm from escaping past your lips. There are many ways to stay alive. You can come heart wrapped in several layers of foil, smashed into a plastic box with an ill-fitting lid, to a place where people say your name like it is good news. You can always fight your way toward freedom. I recommend you decline the option of struggling by yourself. The point is to get your life. There was this wise ruler who said once that by ourselves, we each are unprotected, but two people together can face the worst, the failure, the heartbreak, the upending of the worlds we hold in our hearts, and the secret shame that we will shed like the skin of a smooth snake, though it may take some time. And with three people, you being one of them, you may find that eventually all will be well.
There are a lot of ways to stay alive. ILYSM. All the cool kids are using acronyms these days. What does ILYSM mean? I love you so much. And if you had ever met Theresa, you would believe them when they tell you that. This poem from Reverend Soto is filled with things that make you go, That sound of pleasure. They start by saying you can wear soft clothes and focus on brushing your teeth and hydrating. So much there of pleasure for so many of us. Now, I know not everyone enjoys these things to the same degree, but for those who do, soft clothes can bring such comfort. And brushing our teeth, that fresh taste in our mouth, especially after we've woken up. Oh, and water when you're thirsty? So refreshing. The poem is also filled with things that make you go, Some curiosity. You can give yourself a chance. We can do that. So often we can be reluctant to try something new or to change a habit that is no longer serving us. We can give ourselves a chance. And they said, you can come to a place where people say your name like it is good news. What does that sound like? Where is such a place? Is this such a place? I hope so. I hope so, Felix. Well, your name is good news. The poem is also filled with a few things that make you go, a little judgy. The poet's words point towards and yet then away from judgment. remember not only your mistakes, but also all the ways that you matter. Hmm. Hmm. And then they have the nerve to name very specifically some times when maybe we might not feel like we matter so much. Like from your eyelash to your shoelace, you matter. Huh. And you matter when you are sad, when the world is heavy, like wet laundry dragging your arms. You matter. Like when you are angry and you use your teeth like a welded prison to keep the words that might cause harm from escaping past your lips. You matter. Reverend Soto reminds us of some of the ways to take care of ourselves, to stay alive, and includes things that also bring the of resilience. Soto recommends that you decline the option of struggling by yourself. The point is to get your life. 2 people can face the worst. With 3 people, you being one of them, you may find that eventually all will be well. The American Psychological Association says that resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotionally, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. Most of us have been navigating and adapting to extremely difficult and challenging life experiences. There have been an enormous number of external and internal demands. We have, as a culture, been experiencing a lot of trauma, and having any sense of resilience at all, any ability to have any mental, emotional, or behavioral flexibility has been nearly impossible for so many of us. There hasn't even really been time to just take a moment in recognizing what the heck we've all been going through after all. The climate crisis, police brutality, and other racism, particularly impacting Black and brown people, gun violence, the COVID global pandemic, bullying in schools and workplaces, deepening divisions in our political landscape, and so much more. Because we are interdependent, we are impacted by all of it. To more or lesser degrees in our awareness, yes, and still we are impacted. And then most of us also carry our own experiences of trauma that may be shared with smaller numbers of people, like dangerous family dynamics or other forms of abuse. Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, who serves one of our congregations in Idaho, defines trauma this way. Trauma at its root is any experience that sort of shatters our experience of reality. It breaks us open. It breaks us apart. It causes a rupture in our self-understanding and our understanding of how the world works. Words aren't the only thing that turns things upside down. Pretty much everybody experiences trauma at some point or another in their life, she says. Now, I want to note that not all trauma is the same. And even people who are experiencing the same traumatic event do not experience it in the same way. And some of us have relatively little trauma, while others have experienced a hell that no person should ever be subjected to. In this very circle. Whatever your level of experience with trauma, please know that we support your healing, of you taking your life back in this present moment and letting the past be just that whenever possible. Trauma counseling, finding a good therapist that can help you do this work is really important. And you are worth it. You are worth it. You are worth healing. Your life is worth having. You are worth it. Reverend Stevens continues, one of the things that is important to understand is that trauma is a physiological response. It's not a cognitive one. It's something that lives in our body. And so we can't think our way through it. But we can come up with some cognitive strategies to move through the physiological response. And that's the work of what we might call metabolizing it. We could call it working with trauma so that we can deal with this physiological response in more skillful ways. So trauma can lodge in our bodies even if the traumatic event was not physical. A lot of times we may not know where the trauma lives in us and discover it maybe doing something else, like eating a particular food and suddenly the smell transports you back and all of a sudden fear overwhelms you. Or during an intimate moment with a partner and something shifts your experience to another time and place and suddenly you are crying. Michelle Obama notes in her book, Becoming, that grief and resilience live together. And world leader Winston Churchill once said, if you are going through hell, keep going. Keep going. Creating cognitive strategies to move through physiological response is the work, Stevens says. She calls it metabolizing or working with our trauma. One of those strategies is called co-regulation. Co-regulation, basically, for those of us who aren't familiar with that term, is that we do this as a species. We have evolved over time to help each other do the work of metabolizing trauma, of managing our physiological responses to danger, to harm. We can help each other calm down. We can help bring one another back to our best selves, to that which is our most human, back to kindness and compassion, empathy and connection. All things that we can sometimes lose our grasp on when we're in the throes of that physiological trauma response. This is why it's so important that we come together. Religious community, this religious community can be a place to metabolize, to calm, to reconnect with ourselves and with one another. And we do engage in shared practices to co-regulate, to metabolize, to strengthen ourselves to face the rest of our weeks. Remember, Soto shared that you can breathe in, and then with care, you can also breathe out, taking the thing one single breath at a time. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Sarah Dan Jones composed that song first in response to a very large traumatic event in our nation's experience, those events of September 11th, 2001. The chorus of the original song was adapted to become the chant in the Teal hymnal that we sang earlier. When we breathe together, when we sing together, we are co-regulating, bringing some ease to our nervous system, to our bodies, even when we are masked because of potentially dangerous aerosols and airborne germs. For some of us, that too is co-regulating. Now, breathing is also sometimes connected with the traumatic event itself and can live on in some of us in ways that inhibit our breathing. So if that is true for you, you're invited to sit this next practice out if it doesn't feel right to you. For the rest of us, I just invite you to place your hands on your belly. It's only an invitation, so of course, you are at choice whether to do it. For those of us who are choosing to place our hands on our bellies, just notice if it is rising and falling with your breath. And if it's not rising and falling, maybe your chest is rising and falling, see if you can bring the breath down into that belly. And if so, just let your hand rise and fall along with it. And if not, put your hands on your chest instead, if that breath just does not want to go down into your belly. It's no pressure. Just noticing. And on your next breath, pay attention to the end of the inhalation. There's a slight pause before you exhale. See if you can notice that. And maybe on your next exhalation, notice that there's a pause there too before you inhale again. So we breathe in and there's a slight pause. We breathe out, there's a slight pause. We breathe in, there's a slight pause. We breathe out, there's a slight pause. And the cycle continues, if we're lucky. Viktor Frankl is credited with saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And as we're breathing in together, this co-regulating, there's going to be a graphic that appears, and I'm going to also just trace it in the air. You might decide to trace it in the air if it feels good to you to do that, to just breathe in together. And if we're not at a good pace for you, do it at your own pace. If this isn't working for you at all, just close your eyes and enjoy your own breath. And just be grateful that it is here. So we breathe in for a count of 4. We pause or hold for 4. We breathe out for 4. We pause for 4, and we continue round and round. So in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, in. Things that make you go, Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What happens if we expand that space? What becomes possible in our responding? Paying attention to the space in between can help us choose our response to nearly any stimulus instead of just reacting. This can be quite tricky at first because we are often very used to just reacting to whatever is happening. But when we can, if we are not triggered in the moment, or if we are triggered, we might bring ourselves back with the breath, back with a gentle hold on our chest, back with a song or a mantra. When we practice, we can create that space and make a choice about how we respond. Stevens mentioned that one response that she thinks is really rooted in white supremacy culture is that we try to reassert control in the middle of trauma. And the thing about trauma is you're not in control. This isn't something that can be fixed, she says. This is a place to stay, a place to hold, a place to be present. It's a place to witness, not rush through. She continues, what actually happens as we metabolize trauma is this great mystery and testimony to the resilience of the human spirit. That somehow together we're able to hold and face these big, horrible things that would otherwise overwhelm us, and we find our way through to a place of deeper wisdom, resilience, and spiritual maturity. So today we name that many of us in this room have and or are experiencing trauma, so that we can also talk more honestly about resilience. How resilient we feel is impacted by how connected we are to others and whether we have and employ strategies to cope with the challenges life throws our way. I acknowledge that connection can look and feel a lot of different ways, at least twice as many as there are people in the room. At least. Beauty can build resilience. Music can too. And when we put them together, we can experience incredible music videos. And this one that we're about to share with you from the Tech Deck, by permission of the musicians, is a great example. Rising Appalachia sisters Leah and Chloe Smith are joined by some incredible dancers in this piece called Resilient, with deep gratitude for these artists, these musicians, these dancers. How resilient we feel is connected to how connected we are to others, and whether we have and employ strategies to cope. I feel like I could watch this video every single day as a strategy. How about you? What are some other things, particularly to get through the next couple of days, and then whatever happens after that? What are some strategies to build your resilience? Spend time in nature. Say that again. Rake more leaves. Run really fast. Sing, sing, sing. A few others over here. Meditate. You said something. Say it again. Be time with a pet? Yeah. Yeah. I had that on my list too. Maybe in the next few days, you might just nourish yourself beyond measure. Eat the food you love, unless it's going to be contraindicated by your doctor. Eat the food you love. Spend time with the people you love, or reach out to them if you can't spend time in person. Maybe consider, just maybe, taking a media Sabbath until Wednesday morning. Maybe you think about the layers in your life, and you might sink into a bed full of pillows, or maybe a warm hot tub if you're lucky, maybe a cold plunge today. In this weird weather we're having, perhaps being under a tree trying to catch those leaves before you have to or choose to rake them. Maybe it's dancing with your children, your spouse, your favorite song, or to the music of the spheres that only you can hear. What can you do to build some resilience in you this week? Think about it and then do it. Maybe it's a poem that heals fish. Maybe it's a blanket fort. Maybe it's joining a text bank and encouraging others to vote. Maybe it's sitting and petting your dog, your cat, your gerbil, your kid, a goat, whatever. Maybe it is listening to your soul and finding out what it longs for and providing that. Maybe, just maybe, it is remembering that you are held in a love that will not let you go. May it be so, and may we choose to make it so. Amen, and blessed be.